disrupted.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. I hope you're in a fantastic day so far. So the Liberal Party caucus, the convention, happened recently, and it was a get-together for Justin Trudeau and his cohorts, but there was also surprise appearances, none other by Hillary Clinton, because warmongering parties always think alike, so why not invite the crowd? And Hillary Clinton was a guest speaker at this convention, and she was interviewed by Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, because, again, why when warmongers alike just gather around and talk about more warmongering? And they appeared at this convention, and they're about to talk about Ukraine, but specifically how Ukraine is going to be the message towards China, because, as you know, China is the now boogeyman that they're trying to cultivate and manufacture in us to, fear and hate and be disgusted by. It's kind of the new monster that they're creating to get away from the fact that we're pretty much losing the, idea that we're going to beat Russia. We're losing that factor by obvious reasons. And really this war is hurting us than it's hurting them. So now they're going to try and sidestep to a new boogeyman, which is China, something that they've always wanted to, play towards and build up war tensions with. So Chrystia Freeland and Hillary Clinton are at this convention here, and they're about to talk about Ukraine and how it's going to spread the message of what Canada's going to do to China. And this just seems like a creans down the war drum. This sounds very, very, standard Democrat, but this is coming from the Liberal Party of Canada. And here's what they had to say.
Now, I agree with you, Madam Secretary, that the single strongest message of deterrence we can send to China is a decisive Ukrainian victory. That is something... That is the message that says to all the world's dictators, you know what? Democracy is prepared to fight back, and democracy can actually win.
Democracy is prepared to fight back. The moment she says that, I'm already picturing like almost like a meme of Rocky. Like, I feel like democracy is like this wimpy little guy that's trying to like bulk up and, pumping iron and be like, oh, one of these days I'm going to take him down. Ah! What does that even mean? Democracy is going to fight back against the dictatorships. And considering that's a bold statement from what we're dealing with right now here in Canada, it seems so ridiculously absurd. I mean, take a look in the mirror before you say something like that. Democracy is going to fight back against dictatorships. Well, democracy was trying to fight back during the truckers' strike, and you know what happened with that. You know how dangerously evil and cynical that how deviated that Justin Trudeau and his administration oppressed ordinary people and the truckers and demonized them and called them Nazis and racists, and they shouldn't have, unacceptable views in Canadian society, how we need to take their bank accounts and we need to control them because they have unacceptable views for society. They're evil. That's such bold statement from Chrystia Freeland. That's the message we want to bring from Canada to around the world. That democracy is going to rip you a new one. Not, peace, love, true patriot love. That's the thing I grew up as a Canadian. That's the thing I always envisioned and I adore the most about this country. One of the reasons I love being a Canadian was I always thought it was about peacekeeping and love and bringing on that, to the rest of the world. I thought we were supposed to be the peacekeepers. I thought we were supposed to be, true patriot love, and we're supposed to be expressing our desire for humanity and bring people together. I thought that was the whole point. But no, our message is democracy is going to rip you a new one. Arrgh! Let's hear this again, because that's an absurd statement.
Now, I agree with you, Madam Secretary, that the single strongest message of deterrence we can send to China is a decisive Ukrainian victory. That is something.
And why would that be a deterrent message for China to see? Because I thought in your weird little manipulative brain and, the media talking points and the whole establishment, manufactured narrative is that Ukraine is fighting against Russia. We have nothing to do with this. We're just giving them money, and we're telling them how to figure out their future and defend for themselves. I thought that was the whole point. Ukraine's supposed to be this sovereign nation. Oh, but we also want to have control over it so we could send a message to China. That kind of defeats the whole narrative of Ukraine deciding its own fate and future. Because if you're trying to send that message to China, then you're basically admitting that we're the ones infiltrating this war. We're the ones that are initializing this. We're the ones that are having the grip hands on Ukraine and playing them like chess. Like, we're the ones using Ukraine as cannon fodder, which is exactly what we're doing. Exactly what we're doing.
That is the message that says to all the world's dictators, you know what? Democracy is prepared to fight back, and democracy can actually win. And I do have to do a little small Canadian brag on the sanctions front. Canada was the first.
I wish I had the rest of that clip there, because then she goes on about bragging about how we were the first country to bring on sanctions to Russia. Because, peace and love and free, we're just going to sanction the hell out of it. We could be as warmongery as our brethrens and sisters in America. That's why we're friends with Hillary Clinton. That's why she's on stage at the Liberal Party of Canada conference. Jeez. This is absolutely insane. And the fact that people in that room are clapping of the nonsense that they're spreading just on the fact that they want, all it is they want more war. All they want is more war, more tension, more segregation, more sanctions, more attacks, more upbrest and just absolute chaos around the world. That's all they're preaching in this, and people are clapping like this is some sort of victory. Like, oh, democracy is gonna take back. Coming from the fact that we silenced people and we took away their bank accounts when they were practicing their own democratic right of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom to protest. We took away their bank accounts. We took away their livelihoods when they were questioning the mandates. So when does democracy fight for us? When does democracy come in and kick the dictatorship's ass over here? That's what I want to know. But I want to read some of the comments here. This is absolutely hilarious. So this guy, Daniel Dumbrill, I would say probably the best one here. He says, she saw, he died, she came. She saw, he died, she came. That was me trying to imitate that. I don't think it went well. Here's also this one. This guy writes, they're literally trying to start a World War III. I thought they said if women ran the world, there would be everlasting peace. I thought that too. I thought, that motherly instinct would come out and, how females had this, different approach and they're more emotional and all this stuff that thought would come out. I thought that was the thing. That was what I was told, that if we had more women in power and more women having the control, that, we would have more peace and we'd have more empathy and we'd have more, peaceful society. Well, it turns out that's not the case. And considering the fact that the heads of the most outrageous military contractors, from Raytheon to Lockheed Martin to Boeing to Northrop Grumman, all of those nefarious killing organizations, including private military firms, they're all run by women. Every single one of those CEOs is a female. So, same killing power, but different identity. That's liberalism for you folks. That's the liberal hat trick right there. As long as it looks like it's a different appearance and, we pull some strings on the identity politics, we can get away with anything. It's still a terrible organization, but hey, a woman's in charge, so I guess we gotta applaud it. Just how crazy it just all is. And here's the kind of peace-loving message that Chrystia Freeland is promoting here and how democracy is going to sweep in. Let me just note to this, that from the Globe and Mail, Canada to speed up NORAD upgrades and give $100 million to Haitian police. Not people. Not ending the sanctions that we're putting on Haitian people, which is why it's crumbling, why it's an absolute mess, and why they're trying everything that they can to salvage what's left of their democratic state before we turn it upside down. No, we're going to give it to the police and give them weapons of mass destruction so that they can go crack the heads of those people, of their own citizens, and start their own civil war. Again, the peace-loving country that I thought I was a part of, and one of the things I value the most as a Canadian, just seems to be completely jeopardized at this point. The fact that we're sending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and up to billions of dollars to initiate civil wars so that we can basically annihilate these countries, step in, fix their democracies, and then maybe take a couple of resources here and there. No one has to be the bugger. That's Canada for you folks. Usually it's an American thing, and I always say that's an American thing, but this is happening right here in Canada. That peace-loving country, and how we're so sweet and so nice and perfect, and everyone, quotes how nice we are. This is the message that we're giving to the rest of the world, that we're initializing civil war. We're giving money to the worst people imaginable to start and create more wars, because as you know, just like our United States counterparts, in order to fight in these terror wars, we have to manufacture the terror. We have to create the terror so we can go fight the terror, and then we make money off the terror. Or how about this? Canada's ambassador to the UN, Bob Ray, met with UN Security Council yesterday in New York City. Says $100 million Canadian providing to help shore up police in Haiti is the type of commitment they're encouraging other countries to make. That's the message that we're giving to the rest of the world. Is that, hey, you got to cough up this money so we can start another war. So we can start a civil war inside this random country so we could annihilate it and then come in and fix the democracy and then, maybe take a couple of resources. Something to do with oil. Maybe. I don't know. That's the message us Canadians are giving to the rest of the world. Instead of having diplomacy and negotiations. Because that seems to be what, what's it called? China's doing. You know how they're trying to invest into infrastructure in Africa and how they've done a peace agreement with Saudis and Iranians, how they've, fixed the tensions between Ukraine and Russia by meeting with both presidents. That seems like something most countries would be capable of, but when you're ruled by sociopaths that are bloodthirsty and warmongering and just complete liars, they're going to resort to this. They're going to resort to taking your tax dollars that could be going towards fixing infrastructure or a jobs program or fixing our depleted healthcare and sending it off so we can go kill one another. And I've shown this before, but I want to show it again. This is the kind of investments that we're constantly doing in Canada. And this is just to remind people that back in 2017, as early as 2017, Canadian Armed Forces knew that we were funding neo-Nazis and training alongside with them. And they reported this on City News back in 2019. We're in 2023. We're still continuing to give them money. But we knew back as early as 2017 that we were funding a bunch of neo-Nazi fascists to escalate a war. That is the message that we Canadians, the peacekeepers, are sending to the world.
A meeting with one of the paramilitary units raised to fight off the Russian invasion of Ukraine's eastern provinces. One problem, that unit, the Azov Battalion, has been linked to neo-Nazism, and the Canadian military knew.
Велику, могутню і соборну. Слава нації!
An Ottawa Citizen report says Canadian forces in Ukraine produced a briefing in 2017 saying members of the Azov Battalion identified themselves as Nazis. But the June 2018 meeting happened anyway, with a Canadian forces colonel and diplomatic staff attending. The battalion published pictures on social media saying Canadian representatives expressed their hopes for, quote, further fruitful cooperation. In a statement, the Department of National Defense says they are strongly opposed to the glorification of Nazism and all forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, intolerance, and extremism, adding, our official position remains that we are not, nor will we be providing support to Azov and affiliated entities.
I mean, we're still going to send the money over there so we can perpetrate a war, but we don't want to be affiliated with a bunch of Nazis, because that's not good for the PR. That's not good for our marketing team to figure out, oh, shit, the Canadian Armed Forces are training with Nazis. How are we going to get recruiters if they know we're going to train with a bunch of Nazis? Like, that's all corporate BS. That literally could have been written by an AI. Literally could have been written by an AI. That we're not affiliated with any Nazi program. We're not xenophobic. We're not racist. We're not bigots. But we're going to fund and aid the people and train alongside with the people that express deeply and self-identify themselves as racist white supremacists. As Canadians, the peacekeepers, the lovely peacekeepers that were alongside Nazis.
Brad Galloway with the Center for Hate, Bias, and Extremism has studied the Azov Battalion. He says that while some neo-Nazi groups prefer to be discreet with their imagery, the Azov Battalion is more forthright. German news found members of the unit sporting SS symbols and swastikas, and Azov prominently places the wolf's hook and black sun, two symbols favored by the Nazis, on its crest.
Maybe there's a wing of them that want to tone it down a little bit so it's playable in North America. That could be one aspect of it. But I think with the way they're doing things over in Europe, I think it's as advertised.
Galloway says what concerns him most is the Canadian government underestimating the reach of groups like the Azov Battalion. Similar to Canadians who join ISIS, Galloway warns that alienated far-right Canadians may see the Azov Battalion as a chance to turn ideology into action.
Some risk I see is that guys giving up on the movement in North America and saying, well, we should organize and go to Eastern Europe where we can actually do something. We can make a difference. And that's I think a huge risk.
In Ottawa, Shaoli Lee, City News.
As early as 2017, folks, we knew about this. And we're still in 2023. So that's what? 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So almost 7 years. Almost 7 years. We have continued to aid Nazis in Ukraine. And we're still proudly thinking, because we have been brainwashed and manipulated by the mainstream media, we've been manufactured consent to believe that in order to do this, this is going to stop the nefarious Putin, the supervillain that we have been brainwashed to believe is some sort of super evil character from a comic book, and he's going to do nefarious things. And if we aren't a bunch of Ukrainians that have a bunch of swastikas, but we're not going to mention about that, a bunch of self-described Nazis, neo-Nazis, then we're going to isolate Russia. And to quote Adam Schiff, we're fighting Russia over there, so we don't have to fight over there, over here. And all it's doing is a slush fund of money is going towards the military-industrial complex to manufacture terror so we can continue the war on terror. And all it's doing is screwing every single other individual. Every innocent bystander, every single individual citizen that didn't want war to begin in the first place, did not choose to go to war, does not want this war to happen, just wants to live a normal, peaceful life, are getting screwed over time and time again. We're suffering mass inflation. We're suffering food shortages. There's people in European nations that are still dealing with energy situations because the Nord Stream pipeline explosion that the United States purposely exploded to cause this tension to escalate. And we knew about this since 2017. And imagine if the news media actually looked into the history of this and actually dug up the fact that this has actually been going around since 2014, since a coup that the United States perpetrated in Ukraine to overthrow the democratically elected government to install a partial fascist neo-Nazi group that was escalated by the intelligence community and the military apparatus. Imagine if they actually reported on that. But of course not. Because sadly, like the mainstream media in America, we're also bought and sold, and the corporate media is a running machine of propaganda. And that's why this story can only be found on Twitter, and they'll never ever bring this up again. That's why I have to bring this up again. A simple Canadian YouTuber in his basement has to remind people that since 2017, we've been funding a bunch of neo-Nazis. And Chrystia Freeland and Hillary Clinton laughing together saying that this is the so-called message that we're giving to China. That we're going to escalate a war tension with them. We're going to manufacture aggression towards them. And it's just going to be World War III. And they're sitting and laughing, and people are applauding it, not knowing that this is the end. This is the complete end of a humane civilization when we're ruled by a bunch of sociopaths who have way, way too much control over us.
A meeting with one of the paramilitary units